So, we've all heard it. A woman makes $77 for every, 77 cents for every dollar a man makes. Unbelievable, right? Well, that's exactly what I thought when I first heard of this statistic, and many others like it, all revolving around how the wage gap is due to discrimination in our society. Now, this seemed so unbelievable to me. How could such blatant and obvious discrimination go unchecked and unpunished in today's society? Well, first of all, what is the wage gap? The most common idea of the wage gap that we all know and love is the difference between the average earnings of a man and a woman. Now, if you look at these earnings, there is a difference. This gap does exist. However, there are many various other reasons that cause this fact, or this gap, other than gender discrimination. Now, let's break down some of these factors. Well, one of the most major ones would be the types of jobs these men and women are working. On a statistical level, a broad statistical level, there's a higher concentration of women in lower paying job areas such as healthcare and education. And there's a higher concentration of men in higher paying jobs such as engineering. Now, one thing to remember is these are broad statistics. Now, men and women have different preferences when looking for different types of jobs to apply for and strive for. So that's why, in general, there are different jobs that are more common to have more women in them, and different jobs that are more common to have more men in them. Now, this might account for some of our wage gap, but there's more. The second factor I want to speak about is full-time versus part-time work. In Europe, there are 4 times as many women working part-time compared to men. And if you put these part-time workers into our broad statistics, because they work less hours and they earn a lower wage because they're working part-time, this will affect our gender wage gap. Now, let's just look at full-time workers. Even in this field, there's a factor that's pretty similar to the last one that has quite a major effect, and this would be hours worked. According to, or in the USA, according to the BOLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics, for every 7.8 hours a woman works, a man will work 8.2. Now remember, these are broad statistics. There are plenty of extremely hardworking women that work extremely long hours across the globe, and the same goes for men. But on a broad statistical level, men work slightly more hours, and it adds up. Now, the last factor I want to talk about, and is one that a lot of people are able to identify, would be balancing family life and work. Married women often have, or married women and or women with children, often have an increased amount of work interruptions, often go through parental experiences during key time frames at work, which can affect future promotions, and they generally, on a statistical level, work less overtime. Now, this is especially common in our society, as it is often women who take on more of a burden when it comes to family life, especially with children. Now, enough of these factors. Let me tell you a story. So this was about a year ago, and I was studying for an upcoming eco assignment with my then girlfriend. And I remember we were studying, and she came across an article filled with these 23% statistics and how a woman will lose $530,000 to the wage gap across her career. And like I was when I first read them, she was shocked. But she was also frustrated. I remember her looking at me and saying stuff like, studying for this eco assignment is pointless if I'm only going to earn 77% of what I could just if I was a man. And that's when it occurred to me. People were actually affected by these bent and skewed statistics. My girlfriend was discouraged because of these statistics, and I would be too if I was only earning 70% of what I could just because society apparently favored the other gender. And at this point, it wasn't the gender wage gap I couldn't believe. It was how these online articles and these videos, and even in the mainstream media, they're pushing these bent and skewed facts to support this false narrative that women will only be earning 77% of what men will, when in reality, they have just a good chance as anybody on making it out there in the world. So that's why I think we need to change the view on this wage gap And that's why I find it important to really look at this gap and see what it actually consists of, and not just blindly following these claims that are well known and just put out there on the internet. Well, I'll leave you guys with one last thing to think about. If you're the CEO of a company, right, and you could get away with paying women only 77% of what you would pay your male employees, why would you ever hire a man again? Thank you.